Well, don't remind me to actually sign off as well then.
Yeah, you'll be all right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to one of our podcast summaries. And this week we're going to review episode 26, which was with Eric Brymer, Associate Professor at Southern Cross University in Queensland, in Australia. And Eric's a psychologist that's looking at performance in sport. He uses the methodology around phenomenology. So really interesting. I thought there's lots of crossover for like team sports, more sort of traditional sports, I suppose. Really interesting episode. So we're just going to unpack that. So yeah, Ian, Keith, you well?
Good, thanks.
Very
Yeah,
well,
very good.
thank you, Martin. Yes,
Good.
very well.
Good. Yeah. So, what did you think of Eric's? I think that was me and Keith interviewed Eric there. So, what did you think of the episode? Did you enjoy it? What did you take away from it, I suppose?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know Eric. I've known Eric for a long time, and he's really taken to ecological dynamics. Expert in adventure sports and outdoor education, etc. And I've learned a lot from him in terms of. We've worked on green exercise as well. That concept, the idea of engaging with nature and perceiving, acting, thinking, as you engage with the natural landscape. Some really wonderful insights. One of the biggest things I learned from him that perhaps we could start talking about is the fact that although Eric's very kind of critical of the way that the literature in adventure sports has gone, where the emphasis has been maybe too much emphasis on sensation seeking and the idea that adventure sports athletes are adrenaline junkies and they're only after the high. When he says it's completely the opposite, they're very much focused on the information, not only the information that surrounds them in the environment, vision and other information sources from the terrain, the surrounds, the weather conditions, and they're very much attuned to what's going on there. But also they're very much into understanding how they feel and at that particular moment. And in terms of the technology, the use of the technology for their sports, whether it's a type of bike or it could be like a watercraft, like a canoe or kayak, and the properties of that, and in relation to the properties of the environment. You can see it with, for example, climbing equipment and things like that, that they're very precise about it. They don't take risks, and actually they're very skillful in interacting with the environment in their sports. And that stayed with me when he spoke about that.
Yeah. I obviously wasn't there, but I sort of picked up on that. Eric talks about his lived experience told him that he wasn't. It was about planning very carefully, and this level to look at the problem or look at adventure sports was on the individual environment level of analysis, which is why he got drawn towards sort of ecological psychology as well, and really about knowledge of, as you say, Keith, about your own capacities, your own capabilities, as well as picking up information from the environment. And that really pointed out to me that the environment shapes your capabilities. And I can remember doing a lecture where I was talking about the constraints of the environment, about what information was available. And I found some stuff around about, and I can't remember it because I'm a townie, but the smoke, where the smoke's coming down or up, is telling you something about the pressure of the air and gives you clues about the weather. So the animals are obviously very tuned into this. And I was having this discussion, and the smells, the smell created when it rains, or some people can smell the rain coming, type of thing.
Yes.
And I'm
Yeah.
talking to it, and the townies like me in the class were looking at me as though I was talking out my, you know what. And all the country kids, the kids who'd come in from the country going, yeah, yeah, we can do that. We pick that up all the time. You have to be able to do that if you're out. And you're going. So that, I thought that was really, really crucial part of if we're brought up in an environment where we explore and we search information, we can learn to do that. And that reminded me then, and a link into another sport, into golf, where I think golf's one of the biggest sports where you connect. I mean, a lot of sports connected with your environment, but golf, you really have to be attuned very carefully or
Mm,
very tightly to the weather patterns, the wind direction, wind velocities. How do you pick up that information? And
mm,
then your surfaces, like looking at the color of the green and trying to work out how fast it is and everything. But it reminded me of my friend Pete Arnott, my golf friend, who describes himself as a wind pervert. He's just obsessed by the wind and he's got books on it and he knows the impact. And wind affects amateurs far more than it does professionals, as
Yeah.
you'd
mm,
probably expect. There's some ridiculous numbers, and I can tell you, as an amateur,
mm.
it's a real issue.
But
So yeah,
but the point is, Ian, isn't it, that we can learn that as
yeah,
Yes.
as whatever
Yeah.
you're doing, whatever pursuit you're engaged in, we can learn about that if it's a more formal,
yeah,
structured environment. If as long as the coach is supporting that, we can learn about these things. So, and that's the old point about
yeah,
perception action coupling or perceiving our environment a
yeah,
lot more skillful way. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's the important takeaway here, I feel.
I
yeah,
think what I quite like their point there that's worth thinking about is Tim Ingold's concept of attentive dwelling. The idea
yes,
that that as you learn by doing, um, emphasizing knowledge of the environment, as James Gibson talked about, which is acquired through perceiving, acting, thinking, problem solving in context, and attentive dwelling, and then wayfaring, finding your way through that environment. I think that's suited to all sports, whether it's team sports that we typically talk about a lot, but also particularly outdoor sports. And I think that those ideas are particularly relevant there because I think outdoor athletes have to be highly attuned to the information from their surrounds, whether it's the surface, the terrain,
yeah,
weather patterns, as you mentioned, Ian. And it's a classic dynamical system because these things are changing at a
mm,
short time scale and over a longer time scale as well. And you
yeah,
can have knowledge about the environment that might tell you, for example, that it's going to rain later in the day. But these people can actually tell you when it's going to rain, particularly because they can
mm,
sense it, they can feel it in the air, they can smell it, as you say, the dampness they're sensitive to. And us city dwellers, we don't to develop that kind of refined fine tunement to
yeah.
attunement to information
And
that surrounds us like that.
um, when I was in Auckland, we used to do a coaching unit where each of the students had to do a coaching session. And there's a couple of different types of sports that I had to go and do. So I remember going on Auckland Harbour with a
Mm,
guy sailing, and he's going, yeah, you see that cloud there? And I'm going,
mm,
what?
mm,
He's going, that means we've got to do this, that, and the other, because that's coming in here. So that's a really great example, isn't it? And I
mm,
think if you're brought up in these environments, this is where play comes in, isn't it? And the your history of skills, your
mm,
history of what skills you develop, your capabilities in the world are really important. Um, so I think, like these guys, you said the adventure guys are really well planned, but they're active perceivers. They're looking to pick up information all the time, and they can adapt in the moment then. So it's all about in the moment, it's the perception action coupling. So
mm,
the example I was thinking of is there's a couple actually on that with, this idea that we can plan what we're doing.
mm,
Um, you might be going on a mountain bike, and you've done the route before, and you go, "Yep, I know this." Da 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 da. And then on the day you get there, and there's been a massive flood go through in the 2 days
Yeah.
before, and an area where it's completely dry before is now full, so whatever. So I
Good
thought things,
example.
yeah, this is a really good example, but the way you coached will impact whether you have that, have that capacity, isn't it? Or prepared for that moment, or whether if, like the team that says we haven't got a plan B, you're going, well, wow, that's a bit like having your plan, but not being able to adapt in the moment, isn't it? And
Well, how many? I've seen while you're talking there, and I've just been thinking like, how many times do you see coaches actively avoid certain weather conditions? So I've seen
Yes.
it in rowing where the
yep,
lake gets a bit choppy, nothing that's going to endanger life or anything. It's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
tell you what, we'll jump on the ergos or ergs, do they call them,
Yeah.
the rowing machines instead. And it's like, well,
Mm,
actually, if you just shift your focus a little bit, that could be a great opportunity to
mm,
practice other things.
yeah,
And I've seen it with pole vaulting as well in
mm,
athletics, where it's too windy.
mm.
Now, again, I appreciate if it did become a safety issue, but if it,
Yeah.
there's a certain point where actually we need to practice that. You need to, the athlete needs, because you have a time, don't you, that
yep,
you've got to take your jump or your vault or whatever it is.
Mm,
And understanding the weather, and I suppose it's risk taking. Is it do a stick or twist? Do I
mm,
go for it now because it's not going to be a break in the wind? And can you learn that?
mm.
Um, so yeah, so
mm.
sometimes I think that could be intention
This,
about right. There's an opportunity here to actually practice.
Yeah.
we had a beautiful example in our golf constraint book, Martin, which we start the book with, which was Tiger when he won the Masters for the last time, and he was on the 12th, which is a par three over water. And this is a crucial hole. This has cost people the Masters over the years, and they tell the stories. There's massive numbers of stories on this. So in the hole before, he hears the guys who were around him in the competition. One went in the water, one didn't, and then so his partner hit off, and he obviously worked out which club he'd hit. He heard the sound of the club, so he knew
Mm,
whether it was good contact or not. So he's picking that information up, and from out of all of that information, he decided on what club to hit and what shot he wanted to play.
mm.
And then just prior to him hitting it, he saw the ripples on the pond go up. So he saw
Mm.
these ripples go up, and he put a bit more into it and just put it on the green and knocked it in.
Yeah. Great.
So massive,
Amazing.
this is
Mm.
expertise, isn't it? This is
Yeah.
Yeah.
real
And I think it shows you how the emphasis on in ecological dynamics on a dynamical system that's constantly changing and
yeah,
changing over different timescales. So it can change over the timescale of performance, and that's a kind of an extreme example, but it does happen the here and now. You get a
yeah,
sudden downpour or a sudden gust of wind comes in,
mm,
and changes the weather pattern for a short period of time, etc. And people have to be able to adapt to that, and they learn it. I mean, I don't know if I have spoken about this before, but I think it's particularly pertinent here. How skillful, super elite athletes are highly attuned to their surrounds. If anyone's had a chance to see the film The Alpinist out in
mm,
2021 about a super elite climber from Canada who used to do the climbs that other climbers would avoid, the so-called elite climbers, they'd avoid it. And the ones that the climbs they would do, the alpinist would do those climbs in the worst possible conditions. So, for example, there's a story of when he did a climb in winter when other climbers would only go up a peak in the down in the south of South America, Chile, around there. They they would only do that climb in the summer under good conditions. But the film documents how he planned it. He looked at the weather forecast. He saw he had a time window to get going, and a certain number of hours. So he got in, was at base camp, then went up and got to about 150 meters from the top, and the conditions changed, and they were becoming too much of a risk. Obviously you can't predict weather patterns that precisely to the minute or to the second, and so he decided to go back down, went down, checked out the forecast again and saw the time window, and did the whole climb again just to do the last 150 meters to get to the top in better weather conditions. Now that to me is very much about being highly attuned to your surrounds, the weather patterns, the environment, etc., and not taking risks. So it kind of supports what Eric was talking about.
I was just going to say that, Keith. That aligns. Beautiful example of what Eric's sort of gripe is with a lot. These assumptions around these extreme sport athletes. Yeah, really nice example. Yeah.
It's in it. I think if I remember correctly, he talks about then a lot of people die on the way down from climbing places like Everest because they think they've achieved the goal by getting to the top. But he said that the goal is not to get to the top; the goal is to get back down again afterwards.
Get back down again. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But then just going back to that, the example of the rowing, Martin. I think Sarah Kate Miller, who's a friend and colleague who did a PhD in rowing, talks about. I think it was Henley where. It was quite choppy. It was quite different, and it was either her or one of the Australians. They'd not practiced in choppy water, so they come off, as you say, going to affect your technique if you learn to. So it's crazy, isn't it? But I mean, and Chris Button would talk a similar thing, I guess, about swimming in open water versus swimming in terms of the way you swim is going to be different.
Massively different. Yeah.
Yeah, and your perception and what your capabilities changes, doesn't it, when you're in open water as well? So it's very, very unique. Different.
There's related to that point, Ian. There's a nice paper out by Pierce and what's the second name? Telford, Pierce and Telford, published in 2023 about the McDonaldization of outdoor education programs, and they were lamenting the fact that outdoor education activities and centres have become a commodified experience now, and groups of people and groups of children would come to these centres and they would give them like a standard regular package, as it were. Here's your Happy Meal or whatever it is that they give that version of the experience, but they're not really allowing them to attentively dwell in the location to learn as they're doing. It's all a very commodified experience, which they were lamenting, and I think that's that misses a lot about what outdoor education and adventure sports can contribute to human experience. I think
that links to something Eric talked about, wasn't it? Around he argued that adventure is a fundamental part of being human. And we're having that knocked out of us. We're stopping people doing that. And he said it's basically being designed out. Risk or adventure is being designed out of the environment, and therefore locking the door on people was the way that he described it. So that's a really, when I moved to Australia, when we were teaching PE, they don't teach gymnastics in schools in Queensland. I was just flabbergasted, and basically I was told it's for health and safety. It's too risky to have people doing gymnastics in case somebody gets hurt. You go, it's a fundamental, like learning to roll, learning to jump. Like gymnastics and athletics are the fundamental things for everything else, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, by that count, riding a bike might be considered too risky as well, and so what's a greater risk? Is it sitting at home doing nothing, leading a sedentary lifestyle, or is it engaging in these activities and learning to judge? You talked about at the beginning in the notion of you need to understand your own capacities and how they fit with the affordances of the environment, and that for me is a fundamental part of skill. Basically, judging where you are in terms of your effectivities, your capacities, your dispositions at this point in time, and how you can cope, what you can cope with, etc.
I don't know whether this is, I can't verify this because I listened to it somewhere and it might not be exactly true, but somebody said that the number of injuries children are getting outside from playing out has gone down 70% over the last number of years, but the number of mental health issues has gone through the roof.
Yeah, yeah.
So people are staying inside, not connecting. So,
Yeah.
and
Not engaging with nature.
I wouldn't put my life on the numbers, but you get the idea, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
people are,
So I was just going to say that you talk about sorry, just going back a little bit, like riding a bike, for example. But then you look at back in the day, it was cycle proficiency. I think it's called bikeability now because both my daughters have done it. But it's all done in a playground. To be fair, there is an element where I think they take them on a ride, but generally it's done in a playground around cones and stop, put your foot down, carry on, like. And I get it. It can't be easy. Certainly in inner city schools where you might have 30 kids and you're trying to manage all that. It's not easy. But again, we just need to think. It links to James Banks, Keith, PhD. His work around spaces and places and locations for physical education. So yeah, it's a great point, and you're right. Ian. The other element is getting out for your mental health and well-being. It's so important, isn't it? It has other benefits as well.
It comes back to this, stranger danger, isn't it? Where parents won't let their children necessarily go out and play anymore. On their own. Kids are not playing out. Well, is it really any more dangerous now than it was when we were growing up?
Yeah. Instead, people spend a lot of time online as well. And, I mean, what sort of risks are there in terms of the activities? And, so it isn't a straightforward, decision.
No, again, you close people down. It's like, I think some of the stuff we've talked about with older people, isn't it? Like when you close down and your variability decreases, your mental health goes, your physical health goes.
Yeah.
Even to the level we've been starting doing some walking around where we are, and I'm always walking on the grass because I remember Eric saying there's a study done that shows if you walk on the grass, it's far better for you than if you just walk on the path at the side of it. It's more to your environment, like green exercise. But
the properties of the grass changes.
Yeah, but it also reminded me, I think, of John Wheat, one of John Wheat's studies around variability in running on treadmills versus running on paths of roads, isn't it? Like the stress on your joints is more.
But particularly your patella, and repetitive. The idea of developing a very kind of automatic running style. On the one hand, people might have thought that was good because you don't have to think, etc., and you get into a like a rhythm of pace, and you're able to run in a kind of very energy efficient way. But actually, it's not good for your joints and the interconnectedness of the skeletal muscular system, etc. It's better to have some variability in texture, terrain, etc., so that you're constantly adapting, even at a low level. It's better for your joints.
Yeah. Remember that? Who was the student you had, Keith, who did the textured insoles research?
The Malaysian student, PhD student, and there were two actually. Yeah, there were two. One was from Fung, from Beijing, and
Mm.
he did textured insoles with older people and with Parkinson's patients. And I had a Malaysian student. This is quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
And we looked at textured insoles, but also with compression socks as well.
Yes.
And the idea was that it would facilitate haptic information as you touch from the sole of the foot with the ground, interacting with the ground, and proprioception as well. One of the problems with older people is that their proprioceptive system tends to degrade with age
Mm.
through a condition called peripheral neuropathy. And that's basically where the nervous system down to the lower limb segments degrades with age, and this information that you get as feedback is not high quality.
Right.
And so you're prone to falls and things like that. And it's, as you mentioned before, Ian, use it or lose it. And the idea being that when you're aging, if aging people do not keep moving, do not keep coordinating their actions, engaging with the environment, then the skeletal muscular
Mm.
system, central nervous system can degrade, which then inhibits you from interacting with the environment. And that's a slippery path that you don't want to go down.
I don't know whether it's the same in England, but over here, falls in older people is a massive balance.
Yeah.
Is obviously a massive
Big,
issue.
big in
Yeah.
England. I'd imagine
Yeah.
it's big across the world, to be honest.
Yeah.
And things like
And I know.
compression socks can help,
Yeah.
and textured insoles can help as well, because they just facilitate
Yeah.
haptic information from the soles of the feet and from the lower leg.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
very balanced.
our colleague and friend Gert-Jan Pepping,
Mm,
uh, he does a lot of work in that area
mm,
over at ACU, and he talks about going on a walk and going in woods and
yes,
going on uneven terrain to keep
yeah,
that perception and that balance better.
yeah. It is
Yeah.
very important, yeah. To people learn to. I guess it's the equivalent of when I've talked about skill adaptation, adapting your movements, adapting your coordination patterns to the surrounding environment. That's a skill in itself, and obviously has been applied to the study of athletes in
Yeah.
sport, but there is a health and exercise issue as well.
Yeah.
For people to be to keep moving, to negotiate the environment, to keep regulating their posture, balancing.
Yeah.
It's all very, very important to keep maintaining that sort of perception action coupling that you develop, and you don't tend to pay much attention to as an adult, as a sort of a younger adult, but as an older adult, as the system can sometimes degrade through various conditions, as I said, peripheral
Yeah.
neuropathy. Sarcopenia
Yeah.
is another one, loss of muscle in older
Yeah.
people. That's a big problem, and being able to maintain muscle by regular use, regular exercise, even playing sports is very,
Yeah.
very important. Playing sports like pickleball or walking football, etc. It's all
Mm.
scaled to the capacities of the older individual, and it's very, 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 very important and relevant for them.
Yeah. I think I might have said on a couple of podcasts ago, I've heard there's a walking cricket.
Ah,
And I had a bat for the first time in 20 years the other day, and I thought, if I could go back to walk, if I could walk everywhere and
yeah,
just hit the ball, I'd be happy with this. But yeah, it's really
Did you
good.
open the local club notice, Ian?
yeah.
Oh,
I was actually coaching a guy and a young lad, and he got a blister and he couldn't bat anymore. I said, "Do you want to work on your bowling for half an hour?" And he said, I said, just give me a bat. So he had a size 6 bat, and I borrowed his batting gloves. And he went, will you be all right if I come off my full run? I went, yeah, I think I'll be all right. Uh, but his bat was dreadful. It was like, it's just dead. It was good fun to actually bat again. So it made me think, I quite fancy this, but
got the bug.
we'll see. But yeah, that's good. It's good. I mean, it's interesting around the use of the idea of phenomenology. This is Eric, back to Eric again.
Mm,
As a coaching approach, really, rather than, what he contrasts with a skills-based model or a traditional based model where we're learning skills. And he,
Mhm.
he argues that if you use a phenomenological approach, it's how can I help the athlete solve the problem in the environment. So it's a change of focus on, on attunement really and exploration rather than teaching an isolated skill. I thought it was a fascinating way. I mean, he was applying it from adventure sports, but I think it applies to all sports, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Really?
sure.
Well, I think the thing there, Ian, we've spoke about this loads, and Ross Pinder spoke about this a lot. It's that relationship, and you're not going in with an assumption about what the athlete might need or want
Mhm.
necessarily to make them. It's more getting their lived experience of something, of this
Yeah.
phenomenon, of this learning a skill, of learning a talent, whatever it might be, and
Mm.
then working with, isn't it, through this better relationship with. I think that's the difference. We're not going in with a preconceived idea of we all need to do this or we all need to get better at whatever it might be. Yeah.
Mm.
I think it's just like there's an expectation to in sports that you play in a certain way a lot of the time.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Like this is the way it should be done. But if, in the moment you go, that's actually not the way today. I'm
Mm.
going to do it a different way. And the media then jump all over it and go, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that.
Mm.
Um, did it work? Yeah, it did.
Mm.
So, that comes back to the basketball stuff, doesn't it? Of like solve the problem. It's in front of you.
Mm.
We don't have to do it like based on this playbook.
Well,
It's kind
it's your book that you put me onto, the backyard cricket and the stories. I can't remember the title.
Steve
And
Kinnane's,
yeah,
yeah.
and link back to your story about the city kids and the country kids. And I
Mm.
remember there's a look. I won't get it verbatim, but there was a point in the book, that book, in where one of these top players says, "Oh, you're not gonna, the bush skills that I learned are something that I'm not going to change them now, or they've got me this far, or something like that, because they were so different the way they were batting."
Mm.
Well, it's Bradman, effectively, the greatest batsman of all time.
Yeah,
His approach, it was rudimentary. It's
yeah,
this technique will never work in England. I think he scored 100, at least 100 on debut, destroyed England every tour.
Wow.
But it didn't look as the
yeah.
textbook
He didn't fit the
said.
template. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of sports where, I think somebody described it, it's the only sport where you get rewarded for style. In cricket,
Yeah.
what does he look like? Oh, he doesn't look like a very good player. Uh,
Mhm.
and bowlers, there's a lot of, you have to conform to this model of bowling.
Mm.
Um, and I love doing that. And I just say, right, tell me your five fastest bowlers of all time. And there's a couple of West Indians and maybe an Australian, an odd Englishman maybe. And I go, did they all bowl with the same correct technique? Oh God, no.
Mhm.
They all did it very different. All right. So, and then the argument then people use is go, yeah, but they were geniuses. You know,
outliers.
like, so they can't do it like
Yeah.
that. I can remember as a 12-year-old, my son being told he picked the bat up too far by a coach.
Really? Really?
Really, he picked the bat up and he looked, to be fair, at 12, he picked it up like Lara, like picked it
Yeah, yeah.
up. He
Mm.
was tiny. How is he
Mm.
going to hit the ball hard if he doesn't pick the bat up?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
No, you're picking up too far. That'll never work if you go, and you go, oh, okay, yeah, thanks. Go away.
Yeah.
You know, and I've seen that as a problem with a lot of the kids. They've been coached not to hit the ball,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and they can't use their bodies and et cetera, et cetera. But so it's a cultural thing,
Yeah.
you know,
I
in
mean,
particular.
in terms of a cultural thing as well, I think the different formats of the games, cricket, have been a bit of a stimulus for different types of strokes coming in. And I can't keep. I mean, I'm not you're the cricket expert in the room here, but all these different types of strokes that come in now are just unbelievable to watch.
Yeah,
Incredibly innovative and creative.
yeah, scary.
Yeah.
But times, but. it's again they using these strokes to solve problems.
Mm,
You know, the game, but they're typically played in the shorter games, although they're coming into, into Test cricket and 4-day cricket as well. But
mm,
you've got a limited number of resources. You've got 120 balls to score as many runs as you can.
mm.
And bowlers are quite clever, and they set fields where you're trying to hit to the field, aren't you? So
Yes,
you hit the ball where the fielders aren't.
yes.
So sometimes it's about Ashley Ross talks about this as captaining the team with your bat. So you captain the field team. You get the field that you want by hitting the ball to try and make them put fielders in spots
Oh,
where they.
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You captain the team. You captain the fielding team with your bat.
Mm.
So the players will talk about doing a reverse sweep, for example, to try and get them to put a fielder there,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
open a space up over there. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
or, here again is this attunement to picking up information is that the field settings will give you a clue about what they're trying to bowl. Whether
Yes.
they can
Yeah,
execute it then is another matter. But
yeah.
at least, the better ones can execute more than they want. So
Mm,
if they put all the people out wide, it's
mm.
coming short, or whatever. So
Yeah,
they know, like if they put all the fielders over there, none
mm.
over there, guess where they're going to bowl? So now
Yeah,
it frees you up to hit it over that side by walking across there and whacking it the wrong way,
yeah,
which would
yeah.
be the rules, 30 years ago when I was playing. If it
Mm.
was on the offside, you hit it on the offside. Not anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
Because if they're going there, I'll hit it over there. So it's again, it's just back to attunement to information and solving problems. And the better batters are described as 360 players. They can
yeah.
hit all the way around the ground, which makes it at the
Makes
front
sense.
or back, makes it very difficult to defend then
Yeah, yeah.
when when you can do that. But
I think
anyway,
as well when with performance analytics now, your strengths are and weaknesses are observed through large data sets, etc. So it's clearly the impetus in cricket batting is to keep on evolving, keep on developing,
yeah,
try and to bring new strokes into your
yeah,
repertoire in order to combat what people perceive. Oh, this is a
yeah.
weakness of theirs and that sort of thing.
I think it's like in any sport, Keith, isn't it? I describe it as an arms race, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
you develop something new, somebody counters it. So, in the moment in the Premier League,
Mhm.
the long, the corner kick, it must be killing you are the number of goals Arsenal are scoring from corner kicks, but
Yeah,
and long throws, So how do you counter that eventually? For me, it feels really unfair that 10 people can surround a goalkeeper. You I
yeah,
don't, it just feels wrong somehow, and I mean, that's the rules. So,
yeah.
but
But this is why we need more innovative coaches that can, So the fact that it's Arteta, isn't it? That's clearly a strategy that is employing. But well,
mm,
what's the next strategy to overcome that? Like, and you've just got to keep pushing the boundaries, haven't you? That's the key, I
yeah,
think. Don't get
To be
stuck in. This is the way we've always done it. Sorry, Keith.
yeah, to be fair to certain coaches, they're only responding to opposition playing a low block, so they
yeah,
basically really fill the sort of final third. That's the attacking third of the field near the goal area in soccer football. They
mm,
fill that with defenders, and that's very hard. There's no space there. It's very hard to um, negotiate. So if you do win a corner or a throw in, then you threaten them with a set piece, and that is paying dividends for some teams. As long as teams don't become too dependent on it, it could
yeah,
open out the opposition, encourage them to come out and attack a bit more, and that would create space then for their flair players to
mm,
exploit. So
mm. Back to our
Cool.
position relational debate, isn't it, really? Mm,
Well, yeah, another fascinating chat, gents. I don't know how we got here from Eric Brymer, but anyway,
well,
it's all
we,
relevant.
we we did because the same principles
Yeah,
apply
absolutely.
across lots of
Yeah,
different sports, and and that's what was wonderful about Eric's talk. It was
yeah,
very,
yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah,
so if people haven't listened to it, I would recommend episode 26 with Eric. Yeah,
correct.
cool. All right, gents. Brilliant.
Good
Thank you,
stuff.
Donny.
Thanks for your
Nice
time.
to talk.
Cheers.
Cheers.